Betrayed by the two people he trusted most, his fiancée and his cousin, Liam Blackwood is left reeling, with only his two best friends to pull him from the wreckage of heartbreak. Once the golden boy of his elite circle, now he's a hardened man with no intention of letting anyone get close again. Until her. She stumbles into his life when he least expects it, strong, determined, and battling demons of her own. She's not looking for love, and neither is he. But fate has other plans. Drawn together by pain, healed through passion, and challenged by the secrets they both carry, they discover that sometimes the greatest love stories begin with broken hearts. But when the past comes back to haunt them, threatening everything they've built, will they fight for each other, or will betrayal win again? Chapter 1. There are some moments that split your life in two. For me, it was the sound of her laugh coming from behind a door I'd never needed to knock on. I was supposed to surprise her, roses in hand, smile ready, a weekend getaway planned. But the real surprise was mine. I heard her before I saw her, laughing, light and breathless. A sound I used to think was mine alone. I pushed the door open, expecting her to be curled up with a book or talking to her sister. Instead, I found my fiancé tangled in my cousin's arms, their bare bodies barely covered by the same sheets we had chosen together. The same sheets I'd bled into after pulling double shifts to afford the penthouse we shared, and the same cousin I had grown up with, defended and trusted more than my own brother. My world didn't collapse with a bang. It shattered in complete silence. She gasped when she saw me, eyes wide, lips parted, a flimsy excuse already forming. Liam, but I didn't need to hear it. I didn't want to. I turned around, walked out, and never looked back, because I knew if I stayed, I'd destroy something that couldn't be undone. 3 weeks. That's how long it had been since the betrayal. Since I packed a duffel bag and walked out of the life I built. Since I stopped answering my phone. Since I stopped caring about anything at all. Jax's place became my cave, my sanctuary, my prison. He and Theo tried to drag me out, tried to remind me that I was more than her mistake. But the truth is, when someone slices into you that deep, you bleed memories before you even realize you're dying. Bro, you're gonna rot in here, Jax said, barging into the guest house with 2 bottles and 0 patience. We're going out. No arguments. I'm not in the mood, I muttered, not looking up from the TV. You haven't been in the mood for anything since that night, which, I get. But enough is enough. You've got to come back to life. I downed what was left of my drink. Maybe I don't want to. Well, too bad, Theo said, walking in behind him. Because we already made a reservation. You made a reservation? At the lounge. I stared at them. You think loud music and overpriced whiskey is going to fix this? No, Jax said, but it's a start. The lounge was just as I remembered, dimly lit, filled with smoke and secrets. A place where the rich came to forget and the broken came to pretend. Theo headed straight to the bar. Jax peeled off toward a group of familiar faces. I stood near the entrance, ready to turn around and leave. Until I saw her. She wasn't like the other women in the room. She wasn't laughing too loud or dancing like she wanted to be seen. She sat in the corner booth, alone, a glass of water in front of her and a phone in her hand. Like she didn't belong. Or maybe, like she didn't care if she did. Her presence was quiet, but magnetic. Like me, she looked like someone who was trying to disappear in plain sight. I couldn't stop staring, and when she looked up, when her eyes met mine, it felt like something inside me cracked open. Not healed, just shifted. Go talk to her, Theo said, nudging me. You don't even know her. Exactly, she's not part of the world that burned you. I hesitated, then I moved. She watched me approach, guarded but not afraid. Her eyes didn't drop. She didn't pretend not to see me. She just waited. Mind if I sit? I asked. She studied me for a second, then gestured to the seat across from her. Go ahead. I sat down, slow. You don't seem like the lounge type. And you do? A smirk threatened to break my face. Liam. Emma. Her voice was soft, but there was steel in it. The kind that comes from surviving something sharp. What brings you here, Emma? She sipped her drink. Trying to disappear, I nodded. Same. Silence stretched between us, not awkward, just heavy, like we understood what it meant to be running without moving. Let me guess, she said. You were betrayed, my chest tightened. Yeah, by her and him. Her eyes flickered. Cousin? I looked at her. You too? Not a cousin, a sister. She paused. Half-sister. Took everything I had and left me with the ashes. Something passed between us then. a quiet understanding. I didn't ask for details. She didn't pry for mine. We just sat there, two people with scars we weren't ready to show. And somehow, that was enough. I hadn't planned on staying long. I wasn't here to meet someone or drink myself into a stupor. I was here because it was loud enough to drown out my thoughts, but dark enough to be invisible. And then he walked in, tall, dark, and heavy with the kind of pain you don't advertise. I knew it the moment our eyes met. He had that same shadow in his gaze that haunted me every morning. He didn't hit on me, didn't pretend to charm me. He just sat down like he needed a place to breathe, and I let him, because maybe, just maybe, I needed that too. We talked without talking, exchanged more truth in silence than I had in years of conversation. He didn't push, I didn't run. When he stood to leave, I told myself it was better that way. But then he paused. Same time next Friday? I blinked. You assuming he'll be here? He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. No, I'm hoping. And then he was gone. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel completely alone. I didn't know why I asked her to come back. I didn't know her story. I didn't even know her last name. But I knew what it felt like to sit across from someone who wasn't trying to fix me, just letting me exist. And somehow, that was more than I'd gotten from anyone else in months. I didn't know what this was, but for the first time since the betrayal, I wanted to find out. Chapter 2. It had been a long time since I looked forward to anything. Fridays used to mean meetings, deadlines, and carefully timed dinners with someone who now made my skin crawl. But now they meant something else. They meant her. I didn't know why I came back. Maybe I wanted answers. Maybe I wanted peace. Maybe I just wanted to see if the look in her eyes, half challenge, half heartbreak, was real. The lounge was quieter this time. Maybe it was the rain, or maybe the city was finally tired of pretending everything was okay. I knew the feeling. I walked in, glanced around, and saw her. Same booth, same stillness, same unshakable presence. Emma. She wore a dark green sweater that clung to her like it had memorized her shape, her hair loosely tied back like she hadn't meant to impress anyone. She looked up the moment I stepped in, her gaze locking onto mine like she'd been waiting. I crossed the room and sat down without a word. You're late, she said, no real bite in her voice. You came, I replied. Her lips twitched. Didn't say I wouldn't. We sat in silence for a beat before she added, Figured if you were brave enough to face your demons here, I could too. I raised a brow. This place doesn't scare me. No? You looked like you wanted to set it on fire last week. I almost smiled. Almost. Whiskey? The server asked. Make it two, I said, glancing at Emma. She nodded once. Might as well drink to our mutual disasters. We toasted in silence, to ex-lovers and half-truths, to the people who promised forever and delivered knives. You haven't asked what she did, I said suddenly. Emma leaned back, swirling the liquid in her glass. You haven't asked about mine either. Fair point. She looked at me, the kind of look that peeled back layers without permission. Why aren't you angry? I let out a breath. I was, still am probably, but anger's easy. It's staying numb that takes real effort. She stared at her drink. I got numb a long time ago. Now I just pretend to feel normal. I watched her closely. She wasn't putting on a show. She wasn't trying to impress me. There was no flirtation, just raw honesty, and that was rarer than anything I'd seen lately. Do you ever think, she said, her voice low, that maybe we're just not meant to be loved the way we want? The question hit harder than I expected. I used to believe I was unbreakable, I said. Now I just believe I was easy to lie to. She didn't flinch. Me too. He was different tonight. Still composed, still unreadable, but something in him had softened. Like being broken had made him more human, not less. I didn't know much about him, only his first name. But I'd Googled it, like anyone would. Liam Blackwood, CEO, innovator, billionaire. That kind of man didn't sit alone in a booth with strangers. But here he was, stripped of power suits and headlines, just a man nursing quiet grief, and somehow I liked him better this way. You know, I said softly, I used to think I had everything figured out, graduate, get a decent job, fall in love, build a life. What happened? I fell in love with the wrong person, and gave too much to people who only took. Liam nodded slowly. Sounds familiar. We didn't share much more, not yet, but the space between us didn't feel empty. It felt understood. She left before I did, slipped out with a soft goodbye and no promise to return, but I knew she would. There was something about Emma that had burrowed under my skin without asking. She didn't want anything from me. Not my name, not my money, not my past. She just let me be. And in a world where everyone wanted something, that made her feel like everything. Chapter 3. The city never slept, but I did. Finally. For the first time in months, I woke up without the weight of everything pressing down on my chest, and somehow it had nothing to do with a good night's rest and everything to do with him. Liam. He hadn't asked for anything. Not even my number. But I kept thinking about the way he looked at me like he wasn't searching for beauty or perfection. Just truth. And I hadn't been honest with anyone in a long time. I worked the closing shift at a bookstore cafe tucked in the corner of a quiet block where people still read hardcovers and pretended to enjoy solitude. It wasn't much, but it kept the lights on. The tips were barely enough. The hours were long, but the silence helped. Until it didn't. Around 8 p.m., just as I was about to lock up, the bell above the door chimed, and I froze. I hadn't seen that face in almost 2 years. Tall, smug, wearing the same cocky grin I once mistook for charm. Darren, my ex, the one who'd taken everything, including the business I had tried to start. Well, if it isn't my runaway investment, he said, stepping inside with all the arrogance of someone who believed the world owed him something. What do you want? He shrugged. Just checking in. Heard you were back in the city. I figured I'd see if you were still playing barista or moved up to begging yet. I clenched my jaw. You don't belong here, but I built you, Emma. Don't forget that. He leaned closer. And what I build, I can break. I stepped back. He smiled, and just like that, I was 22 again, standing in the ruins of my own stupid heart. You should go, I whispered. He winked. I'll be around. When he finally left, I locked the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. That night, I didn't go straight home. I went to the lounge, and I prayed Liam would be there. I wasn't supposed to be out tonight. I had meetings in the morning, deals to close, a board that was already getting nervous with how long I'd been out of the spotlight. But none of that felt real anymore. Only she did. So when I saw her walk into the lounge, eyes wild, breath shaky, I knew something was wrong. Emma? She spotted me and came straight to our booth. No hesitation, no words. She just sat across from me and reached for my drink. I let her take it. She knocked it back and winced. I needed that. I didn't ask why. I waited. After a moment, she spoke. Do you ever see someone from your past and suddenly feel like you're drowning in your own skin? My body tensed. Yeah, I have, she nodded. Then I wanted to ask who, what, why she looked like someone had gutted her. But instead I asked, are you safe? Her eyes flicked to mine, wide and startled, and then slowly she nodded. Yes, just rattled. I leaned forward. If that changes, I need to know. She stared at me for a long time. Why do you care? Because I hadn't cared in so long. Because she looked like I felt. Because even if I didn't understand it yet, I wanted to. Because I do, I said. That answer seemed to disarm her, or maybe it made her more afraid. Either way, she stayed, and this time she didn't leave first. Chapter 4. I didn't ask for her past, but it found me anyway. Emma wasn't just another woman passing through my life. I knew that now. The way she carried her pain like armor. It haunted me. And something about the way she looked that night, when she walked into the lounge, shaken but still standing, set off every instinct I had left. I needed to know who hurt her. Not because I was curious, because I wanted to destroy them. So I made a call. Jax answered on the second ring. Miss me already? I need a favor. Please don't tell me this is about a woman. It is. He was quiet for a second, then sighed. You're not the rebound type, Liam. It's not like that. Her name is Emma. Someone from her past showed up. He rattled her. And you want me to find out who he is? No, I want to know what he's done. 2 days passed before I saw her again. She showed up at the lounge like always, slid into the booth like she'd never been gone. But tonight, her walls were back up. Her eyes distant. You've been quiet, I said. I've been surviving. Want to talk about it? She hesitated, then shook her head. I don't want him to take up more space in my life than he already has. Then let me. She looked at me sharply. Let you what? Take up the space instead. Her breath caught. I wasn't good with soft words. I was better at strategies and boardrooms, deals and silence. But this woman, she was worth stumbling over. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something. But her phone buzzed on the table, and she froze. I glanced at the screen before she could turn it over. Darren. Her hand trembled as she declined the call. My jaw clenched. Him? She didn't answer. Didn't need to. That name was already burned into my mind. I never meant for Liam to find out, not about Darren, not about the damage he left behind. But there was something terrifyingly honest about Liam. He didn't push. He didn't pry. He just was quiet and strong, like a wall no storm could move. And for a girl like me, who'd been through too many hurricanes, that was dangerous, because it felt safe, and safe things never lasted. I was stupid, I said suddenly. I thought I could build something with someone who saw me as a stepping stone. I gave Darren my savings, helped him start a business. He promised we'd build it together. Then he put it in his name, kicked me out, and told everyone I was unstable. Liam's hands curled into fists. I tried to fight, legally, emotionally, but he had money, connections. I had nothing. And when it all crumbled, I left the city. You came back. I had to. My brother needed me. He's sick. I'm all he has. Liam's jaw flexed, but his eyes stayed soft. You're not alone anymore. It was only a whisper, but I felt it in my chest like a thunderclap. Jax's voice came through the phone the next morning. I found him. Darren Grayson. He's a fraud with good lawyers. Sued twice for emotional distress, but he settled fast. The guy's clean on paper, dirty everywhere else. I closed my eyes. And Emma? She filed a lawsuit 3 years ago. Lost. No lawyer would take her case. That was all I needed to hear. I'd stayed silent when I was betrayed. I'd walked away because I didn't want blood on my hands, but this wasn't my betrayal. This was Emma's. And I wouldn't walk away from this one. Chapter 5. The first rule in my world, never make threats you can't deliver. So when I told Emma she wasn't alone anymore, I meant it. I didn't know what this was between us. It wasn't love, it wasn't casual, it wasn't simple. It was something in between. Quiet, brewing, sharp-edged. And I wasn't going to sit back while a man like Darren Grayson thought he still had control over her life. So I showed up. Not at his house, at his office. He worked out of a sleek glass building in the financial district, riding the success of a company Emma helped build. The receptionist asked if I had an appointment. I gave her my name. 5 minutes later, I was in. Darren stood as I entered, confusion morphing into that same smug grin Emma described. Mr. Blackwood, he said, didn't expect to see you here. I sat in front of him without shaking his hand. I'm here about Emma Hale. His face stilled. Then smirk. Ah, she's got a new protector now? I didn't blink. She doesn't need protection, but if you try to come near her again, call, follow, or even whisper her name in a bar, you'll regret it. He leaned back, chuckling. And what exactly are you threatening me with? Public shame? Corporate sabotage? I don't make threats, I said, standing. I make promises. Before I left, I added, you touched her life once. That mistake won't happen twice. And then I walked out, slow, deliberate, already knowing I'd shaken him. The bookstore was quiet that evening. I wiped down the counter, trying to ignore the ache in my chest that had nothing to do with work. It was Liam. He hadn't messaged, hadn't shown up, and I hated how I noticed, because I wasn't supposed to want someone like him. And yet, here I was, hoping for another night where he just sat with me in silence and made me feel like breathing wasn't something I had to fight for. The bell chimed. I looked up and froze. It was him. But not Darren. Liam. He walked in like he owned the space, like every shadow bowed out of his path. His eyes found mine instantly. You're here, I whispered. He walked up to the counter. Of course I'm here. Then he pulled something out of his coat pocket and placed it on the counter. My phone. I blinked. How did you? You left it at the lounge. I figured you'd want it back. I picked it up slowly. Thank you. But he didn't leave. He stood there, watching me with that unreadable expression of his. Then he said it. I spoke to him. My heart dropped. You what? Darren? Liam? I took a shaky step back. You had no right. I had every right, he said quietly. He called you again this morning. He doesn't get to do that, not anymore. You can't fight my battles for me. I'm not. I'm standing beside you while you fight them. But if he crosses a line again, I won't just stand. The silence between us was sharp. Then I whispered, why are you doing this? He didn't hesitate. Because you deserve better. And because I don't want to be the kind of man who watches something good drown just because he's afraid to get wet. Chapter 6. I wasn't used to people fighting for me. Most of my life had been a long, careful balancing act, one I walked alone. Every time someone got close, they either left or hurt me. so I stopped letting people in. Until Liam. Until his quiet intensity broke through the cracks I didn't even know I still had. He didn't ask for permission to defend me. He didn't need to. But now he was standing in front of me in this tiny bookstore, fire in his eyes, and I didn't know what to do with the part of me that wanted him to stay. "You can't just show up at his office," I said, softer this time. He stepped around the counter into my space. "I can." And I did. I never asked for help. I know, but I don't need to be asked when it comes to you. My breath caught. There was no judgment in his voice, no possessiveness, just certainty, the kind that scared me. "You don't even know me," I whispered. Liam's hand lifted slowly, hesitating, then brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. The touch was gentle, but it sent a current through me that left me unsteady. "I know enough," he said. "I know you'd rather carry everything alone than risk being disappointed again. I know you hate needing anyone, and I know you don't trust easily, but you're still here." I stared at him. "That scares me." "Good," he murmured. "Because it scares the hell out of me, too." That night, for the first time, I let him walk me home. We didn't say much on the way. He kept his distance, his hands tucked into his coat pockets, but I felt his presence like gravity. My apartment was small, 1 bedroom, 2nd floor, above an antique shop that always smelled like dust and jasmine. "Thanks," I said as I unlocked the door. "For walking me." He nodded but didn't turn away. "Do you want to come in?" I asked before I could stop myself. He blinked. And then, "Only if you're sure." I wasn't, but I stepped aside and let him in anyway. Her apartment was warm and quiet, sparse, books lined every surface, a well-worn couch, a chipped mug beside a record player. Nothing extravagant, but everything had her fingerprint on it. She watched me as I took it in. "You expected more?" she asked. "No," I said honestly. "I like it." She gave a tight smile, then walked into the kitchen. "Tea?" "I'm out of whiskey." "I'll take tea." I watched her from the doorway as she moved, shoulders still tense, but something about her felt softer in her space. Like the version of Emma I was seeing now was the real one. She handed me a mug and sat beside me on the couch, tucking her legs beneath her. The distance between us was respectful, but it hummed with unspoken things. "I don't let people in," she said suddenly. "I know. You're the first man I've let walk me home in years. I didn't move. I don't expect anything from you, Emma." She turned her head slowly, looking at me like she was searching for a lie and not finding one. "Then why are you here?" I took a breath. "Because you make silence feel safe. Because when I'm with you, I don't hate myself so much. And because I think I want to know what it feels like to be someone worth staying for." Her eyes widened, and for a long time neither of us moved. Then, quietly, she whispered, "Stay." Chapter 7. He didn't touch me. He didn't try to. And maybe that's what broke me the most. Liam sat on my worn couch with a mug of tea he never finished, his broad shoulders relaxed for the first time since I'd met him. I curled up at the opposite end, legs tucked beneath me, heart pounding from the words we hadn't said. He made me feel seen, not wanted, not used. Seen. It was terrifying. "You can stay," I said softly, "but I should warn you, I talk in my sleep." He smiled, really smiled for the first time. "I'll keep it a secret." I handed him a blanket and pillow. "Couch is yours." But when I turned to walk toward my bedroom, his voice stopped me. "Emma?" I looked back. His eyes were softer than I'd ever seen them. "I won't run, no matter what you tell me, or how hard this gets. I'm not here for perfect." I nodded once, and went to bed wondering why it was easier to breathe with a stranger in my home than it had ever been with the man I once loved. She didn't sleep much. I could tell by the way I heard her shifting behind the bedroom door all night, the soft creak of floorboards, the occasional murmur. I didn't sleep much either, because peace wasn't something I trusted. I sat in the dark, staring out the window as the city lights flickered across the glass. Somewhere in the silence, I realized I didn't feel like a guest in her home. I felt like I belonged there. At some point past 3 a.m., the bedroom door opened. She stood there, barefoot, oversized t-shirt hanging off one shoulder, her hair a tangled halo. "I can't sleep," she whispered. I nodded and moved over, making space beside me. She hesitated, then walked to the couch, sat down, and leaned into my side like it was the most natural thing in the world. I wrapped the blanket around both of us. We didn't speak, we just existed, and in that stillness, I finally felt like a man again. Not a CEO, not the guy who got cheated on, not the angry, hollow shell I'd been for weeks. Just a man holding the one woman who didn't ask for anything, but gave everything without knowing it. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight and Liam. His arm was around me, protective but gentle. His chest rose and fell slowly, rhythmically, and for a long moment I didn't move. I didn't want to break whatever spell we'd fallen under. But real life doesn't wait for love or healing. And as soon as Liam left for a meeting around noon, real life found me. A single envelope on my doorstep. No name, no return address. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside, a photo of me and Liam sitting close on the lounge couch, and a single sentence typed in bold. He doesn't know who you really are, but I do. Chapter 7. I wasn't used to waking up with someone still around. People usually left, some quietly, some messily, some without a word, like I hadn't mattered at all. But when I stepped out of my bedroom the next morning, Liam was still there, sitting on the couch sipping the tea I'd left out for him the night before. His hair was slightly tousled, his sleeves rolled up, shirt unbuttoned just enough to see a sliver of skin and the hard lines of his chest. God help me, he looked like peace wrapped in sin. His eyes lifted when he saw me, and something in his face softened. "Morning," he said. My throat tightened. "You're still here. I told you I don't run." I moved slowly, curling up on the far end of the couch again. The distance between us was less than last night, but it still felt like a canyon I wasn't sure I could cross. "You didn't have to stay," I whispered. "I know." Silence stretched between us. I used to believe people stayed because they wanted to, but I've learned it's usually because they haven't found the exit yet. His gaze didn't waver. "I saw the door, Emma. I chose not to use it. That made my chest ache in places I thought were already numb. I tucked my knees to my chest, avoiding his eyes. You don't know everything about me. If you did, you wouldn't be sitting there." Liam leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Then tell me." I shook my head. "Not yet." And still, he stayed. We spent the morning like two strangers learning each other through silence. He helped me fix a squeaky window in the kitchen without being asked. I made us breakfast, nothing fancy, just toast and eggs, and we sat on opposite ends of the table like we were afraid to admit how badly we wanted to be closer. When he finally stood to leave, something in my chest twisted. "I have a meeting downtown," he said. "It'll only be gone a few hours." "You don't owe me an update," I murmured. His voice was quiet. "I'm not giving one. I'm letting you know I want to come back." He stepped toward the door but paused, one hand on the knob, the other clenching at his side like he was debating something. Then he turned back, walked to me, and brushed a kiss against my temple. Soft, careful, devastating. "I'll see you tonight," he said. And he was gone. The moment the door closed behind him, I let out a shaky breath I hadn't realized I was holding. He didn't ask for more. He didn't demand what I wasn't ready to give. But part of me feared the moment I told him everything, it would all disappear. And that fear was about to get worse. Later that day, it came just after noon. A quiet knock, no voice, no footsteps down the stairs after. Just a plain white envelope on the floor when I opened the door. No name, no address, no warmth. I hesitated, then picked it up with trembling fingers, peeled it open slowly. Inside was a single photograph. Me and Liam, seated at the lounge. I didn't even remember the moment it was taken, but it was real. Too real. And under it, in bold black letters typed neatly across a strip of white paper, "He doesn't know who you really are, but I do." My legs nearly gave out, because I knew that voice. Not in sound, but in tone. That mocking, warning chill in a sentence that didn't need a name attached. Darren, he was watching, and now he knew I wasn't alone anymore. Chapter 8. I stared at the photo until my fingers went numb. Whoever took it had been close. Too close. The angle was from behind, maybe one table over. Too deliberate to be coincidence. Darren knew, had seen us. He was watching. My throat tightened as my mind spiraled. Was he following me? Had he been following us? Had he watched me bring Liam home? I couldn't breathe. I shoved the envelope under the couch cushion and grabbed my phone. My hands shook as I opened a blank message to Liam. Then I froze. What would I even say? He's watching us. You're in danger because of me. I'm not who you think I am. I couldn't send it. Not yet. He deserved the truth, but how could I tell it without losing the only person who made me feel like I hadn't already lost myself? The second I walked back into her apartment, I knew something was wrong. Emma was pacing in the kitchen, fast, agitated, one hand tugging at the hem of her sweater like it was the only thing grounding her. She didn't hear me at first, not until I said her name. Emma, she turned. Her face was pale, eyes wide, panic hiding just beneath the surface. Hey, I crossed the room in seconds, hands gentle on her arms. What happened? She opened her mouth, closed it. I just got spooked, that's all. Spooked by what? She shook her head. It's stupid, I'm fine now. No, you're not, I moved closer. Emma, look at me. She did, and the look in her eyes gutted me. Fear, shame, secrets. I softened my voice. Did he come here? No, but I think, her voice broke. I think he's watching. My blood ran cold. Why do you think that? Another pause. Then she reached under the couch and pulled out the envelope. I took it from her hands gently, looked at the photo, read the message. My jaw tightened. He didn't touch her. But this was a move, a threat, a warning, and it wouldn't be ignored. You should stay with me, I said, quietly but firmly. Her eyes widened. What? I don't want you here alone. You're not safe. I can't just… Liam, I don't want to drag you into this. You already have, I said, stepping closer. And I don't regret it. She hesitated, torn between pride and fear, then finally nodded. Okay, I didn't want to go with him, not because I didn't trust him, because I did. Too much. His penthouse was everything I expected and nothing like I feared. Cold lines, clean spaces, floor-to-ceiling glass, but his scent was everywhere. Warm spice, expensive cologne, and something undeniably him. He gave me the guest room. I knew had never forced closeness. But that night, after hours of pretending to sleep, I stepped out into the hallway and found him standing in the kitchen, sipping from a glass of water, shirtless, his hair a mess, shadows under his eyes. You okay? He asked softly. No, he set the glass down. Come here. I did. I crossed the distance and stood between his arms like it was the only place I belonged. I don't want you getting hurt, I whispered. I'm already in it, Emma. I'm not backing out now. I'm not good at letting people protect me. I'm not asking you to be. His hand rose slowly, brushing against my cheek. But I am asking you to trust me. I swallowed hard. And what if I break you too? He leaned in, voice rough and low. Then at least I'd know it was real. Chapter 9. There's a point where patience becomes weakness. I wasn't about to cross it. I stared at the photo again, Emma and me at the lounge. That smug little message typed beneath it. He doesn't know who you really are. But I do. I'd spent most of my adult life in boardrooms filled with liars. I knew a bluff when I saw one, and Darren Grayson was bluffing, poking the fire to see if I'd burn. He wanted her scared. He wanted me to back off. So I did what I do best. I moved first. Jax arranged the meeting, neutral ground, a private corner at a hotel bar where men like Darren thrived, sleek, slick, and full of rot under the surface. He showed up wearing that same smug expression. Not surprised to see me. I was wondering when you'd come knocking again, Blackwood. You crossed a line. He sipped his drink, slow and theatrical. I sent her a photo. Big deal. I didn't touch her. I didn't smile. You sent a threat. Technically, no. I just reminded her of the truth. I leaned in, voice low and dangerous. Emma is under my protection now. You know who I am. You know what I'm capable of. One more move, even a whisper, and I will end you. He laughed, but it was nervous now. She didn't tell you everything, did she? My silence was his answer. Oh, Liam, he said, shaking his head. You really think you're the first man she's run to when things got messy? The girl's got secrets. I stood slowly. So do I. Difference is, I don't hide behind threats. I bury them, and I walked out because that conversation was over. Now it was time for Emma to tell me the truth. I knew had gone to see Darren. I could feel it in the air when he returned, tense energy beneath his skin, like a storm barely contained. He didn't say anything at first, just poured himself a drink, handed me one, and sat beside me on the couch. He said you're hiding something, Liam said quietly. That there's more to the story. I froze. He didn't accuse me, didn't raise his voice. He just waited, and somehow that made it worse. I swallowed hard. He's not wrong. His jaw tightened, but he stayed still. Then tell me. I stood and began to pace, heart racing. I didn't just help Darren build his business, I said. I started it. Every dollar I had went into that startup. He convinced me to use my name, my contacts, my pitch to investors, said it made more sense. I was young, naive, in love. I paused. 2 years in, when the funding came through, he changed everything, locked me out, said I was mentally unstable and claimed I'd falsified documents. I lost everything, even my credit. Liam stood now too, but his expression didn't harden. It softened. He said, "You ran." "I did," I whispered. "I was ashamed and angry and scared. I left town and disappeared, started over. I didn't think I'd ever come back." He walked toward me, slow, eyes steady. "Why did you?" I looked up at him, voice shaking. "Because my little brother got sick. He needed me, and I didn't have a choice. He reached for me, wrapping his arms around me like armor." "You always have a choice, Emma," he murmured against my hair. "And this time, you're not choosing alone." Chapter 10. The message came through my inbox at exactly 2:03 a.m. I wasn't awake. I'd fallen asleep curled up on Liam's couch, a book in my lap, the echo of his voice still in my head from earlier. "You're not choosing alone anymore." But when I opened my eyes in the dark and saw the soft glow of my phone screen, dread returned like a ghost that never left. Frunknown subject, TikTok. Let's see how long he still wants you once he finds out what really happened with your brother's money. I shot upright, breath caught in my throat. No. That part of my life wasn't just secret. It was sealed, dead, buried. I had paid enough for that mistake. My fingers shook as I opened the attachment. A photo of a bank transaction. My name, my brother's name. The loan I took in his name when he was too sick to know because he had no insurance and I had no options. Darren had found it, and now he was going to use it. I heard her sob before I saw her. I bolted from the bedroom barefoot, following the sound into the darkened living room where she stood with her phone pressed to her chest, eyes wide with horror, mouth open like she couldn't catch her breath. "Emma?" "I didn't mean to." Her voice cracked. "He needed me. He was dying. They wouldn't treat him without payment, so She broke off again. I crossed the room and took the phone from her trembling hands, scanning the email. My stomach turned with rage. "Has threatening to expose you." "I used my brother's identity for a loan, Liam. If this gets out," she wrapped her arms around herself, "he'll lose everything." I looked at her then, not like a woman with secrets, but a woman who had survived. A woman who made hard choices when there were no easy ones. "Was he okay?" I asked. She blinked. "Your brother, is he okay now?" She nodded, tears falling. "Yeah, he's in remission. He doesn't know what I did." "Then you made the right choice." Her breath hitched. "But it was illegal, selfish. No, it was desperate. There's a difference." She stared at me, stunned. And then something in her just broke, or maybe it melted, because the next thing I knew, she was in my arms, burying herself into my chest like she didn't want to be anywhere else. "I've never told anyone that," she whispered. "No one. Not even my brother. Not everyone." His lips didn't find mine immediately. They found my forehead, my temple, my jaw, soft touches, reverent, like he was mapping his way to trust before he ever dared claim more. I stood on my toes and kissed him first. It wasn't planned. It wasn't soft. It was a storm, his arms locked around my waist as his mouth found mine fully, deep and hungry and real. My fingers gripped his hair, his name escaping my lips in a gasp when he backed me gently against the wall. The kiss told the truth we hadn't spoken yet. "I see you. I want you. You're safe now." When he lifted me off the floor and carried me to the bedroom, I didn't say a word. I just let myself feel, because for the first time in years, I wanted more than survival. I wanted him. Chapter 11. I woke up before the sun. The city was still quiet, cloaked in blue-gray shadows, but Liam's arm was around my waist, firm and steady, anchoring me to the present like a promise I hadn't known I needed. His breath was warm against my shoulder, his heartbeat steady, safe. I hadn't meant for it to happen. I hadn't expected to fall asleep wrapped around him, skin to skin, soul laid bare. But I didn't regret it. Not even a little. What scared me wasn't the night we'd shared. It was the fact that I never wanted to sleep alone again. I carefully slipped out of bed and pulled on one of his shirts. It swallowed me, soft and clean and smelling like him. In the kitchen, I made coffee just to keep my hands busy, because the quiet made it real. I had told him my secrets. I had let him see me. What if it changed everything? She was gone when I woke up, but her scent was still on my skin, her warmth still tucked into the sheets. I sat up slowly, running a hand through my hair. Last night hadn't been about sex. It had been about truth, about choosing someone completely and knowing they chose you back. I walked into the kitchen and found her standing barefoot in front of the window, holding a cup with both hands. She turned when she heard me. Her face was calm, but her eyes still held that flicker of fear. I crossed the room. "I'm not going anywhere," I said, before she could speak. I know, she whispered. She set her cup down and leaned against the counter, fingers fidgeting. I need to tell you the rest. You don't have to. I do. She took a breath. That loan I took under my brother's name, I paid it back, every cent. I used everything I had, every shift, every tip. I didn't spend a single dollar on myself for over a year. But legally, none of that matters. If Darren exposes it, it could still ruin me, my job, my future, maybe even prison time. Her voice cracked. I did it to save my brother's life, and it's the one thing I'd do again, even if it cost me everything. I stepped closer. Then let me handle the rest. She shook her head. Liam, I'm not asking for permission. I'm telling you, I'm going to make sure this ends. And when it does, Darren Grayson won't be able to touch you again. Not legally, not personally, not ever. The silence that followed was thick. Then she looked up at me and said the only words that mattered. Okay. That afternoon I made the call. Jax, I said, pacing my office, I need two things, a digital forensics expert and a media leak. Blackmail? Retribution. A pause. You're in deep. Yeah, I said, glancing toward the hallway where Emma had disappeared into the guest room. I'm all the way in. Chapter 12. There are two kinds of war. The kind you see and the kind you never know you're part of until it's already over. I chose the second. By the time Darren realized what was happening, his empire had already begun to rot from the inside. The media leak wasn't an article. It was a whisper, planted with precision. An anonymous tip to a well-connected reporter about falsified business records and a string of NDA-covered settlements tied to emotional abuse and manipulation. I didn't fabricate anything. I didn't have to. Darren had buried himself long ago. I just handed the world a shovel. He called me, twice. I didn't answer either time. But when Jax forwarded me the audio from a private investor meeting, I knew it was working. We can't be associated with that man if there's even a chance the rumors are true. Have you seen the buzz online? I want out. Pull our money. This Emma Hale woman, she's not staying quiet anymore. I smiled, because I hadn't even told her the plan yet. I was halfway through folding Liam's laundry. How had this become normal? When my phone started vibrating on the nightstand. 3 missed calls, all from numbers I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then picked up the 4th. Is this Emma Hale? Yes? This is Shelby Ortiz, reporter with the Weekly Ledger. I was wondering if you'd like to comment on the recent story involving Darren Grayson. I hung up before she could finish. My heart thundered. I walked straight out into the hall and found Liam in his office, staring at a screen full of numbers like he hadn't just thrown a live grenade into someone's career. He looked up when he heard me. What did you do? I exposed him, he said simply. My jaw dropped. Liam, he was never going to stop. This was the only way to end it. There are reporters calling me. Let them, he said calmly. They're not looking to attack. They want a quote from the woman he tried to silence. And if you want to give them one, I'll stand beside you while you do it. My chest tightened. I didn't ask for this. I know, he said, standing. But I'm not sorry. He took your voice. You deserve to have it back. Loudly. I sat down hard on the arm of his chair, breath unsteady. What if it makes things worse? His voice lowered. Then we fight harder, together. The next day, an article went viral. Grayson Empire crumbling. Anonymous whistleblower points to ex-partner Emma Hale. I stared at the screen in disbelief. There were no pictures of me, no direct quotes, but my name was there, in bold, beneath Darren's, and for the first time I didn't feel buried by it. I felt seen. And when Liam walked in, holding 2 mugs of coffee, I didn't flinch. I reached for his hand. Thank you, I said. He sat beside me, brushing his thumb over my knuckles. You don't owe me anything. I know, I whispered. But I want to give you everything anyway. Chapter 13. I thought we were done. I thought the article would be the last crack in the armor Darren wore like a second skin. I thought his silence was surrender. I was wrong. The package arrived 2 days later. No return address. Hand-delivered to Liam's building. And this time, it wasn't subtle. Inside was a thick folder. Screenshots, emails, bank statements, all printed. And a note, you may have survived me, but the world doesn't love thieves. Let's see how far your knight is willing to fall for a liar. I stared at it, cold to the bone. He wasn't just trying to destroy me, he was trying to turn Liam against me. I found her on the balcony, barefoot, wrapped in one of my sweaters, the folder clutched to her chest like a shield. She didn't look up when I stepped out. He sent it, she whispered. I know. She finally looked at me, and her eyes were raw. I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of feeling like one wrong step means losing everything. I nodded. Then let's stop hiding. Her brow furrowed. What does that mean? It means we go public. We take control of the story before he can twist it. We tell the truth. All of it. Her breath caught. What if it backfires? Then we back each other up. She stared at me for a long, silent moment. Then she nodded. I didn't expect the response we got. Liam made the call to the same reporter who tried to contact me earlier. A recorded interview. Just me and Shelby. No handlers, no PR spin. Just the truth. I told her everything. How Darren manipulated me. How I took the loan for my brother. How I tried to disappear. How I found someone who refused to let me fade. It aired that night, and the world listened. The article was shared thousands of times. My inbox flooded. Not with hate, with hope. Messages from women, from survivors, from people who made hard choices like I did. Liam read every single one with me, his arm around my waist, pride in his eyes. This is your story now, he whispered, and no one else gets to write it for you. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I stood in Liam's penthouse looking out at the skyline, and I finally felt free. Chapter 14. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Even with Liam beside me, his hand resting on my lower back, calm and steady, I felt the chill of every whispered lie Darren had spun around me for years. But I didn't let it show, not today. Today, I wasn't here to hide. I was here to finish this. The lawsuit came faster than anyone expected. Once the public pressure built, a group of former employees stepped forward, backed by leaked financial evidence Liam's team uncovered. Embezzlement, fraud, emotional abuse. My name was listed as a material witness, and Darren, he was finally cornered. He didn't look at me as I took the stand, but I looked straight at him. I told the truth, calmly, clearly, and when the lawyer asked if I'd ever be afraid of him again, I said, not anymore. Watching Emma in court felt like watching someone take their power back piece by piece. Not with rage, with grace, with fire that didn't burn the world, just melted the chains. I didn't say anything afterward, I just drove her home. She stared out the window most of the way, her fingers wrapped around mine. Halfway up the elevator, she finally spoke. Do you think people really get to start over? I turned to her. I don't think they just get to. I think they choose to. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, they weren't shadowed by fear or regret. They were clear. The next morning, I visited the bookstore I used to work at. The owner hugged me tight and told me she was proud. People are talking, she whispered, but not in the way they used to. They're inspired. I stood outside the store for a long time afterward, staring at the front window. I used to look through that glass and wonder if I'd ever be more than what happened to me. Now, I saw a future. Not because someone saved me, because someone reminded me I was worth saving. And I believed it. That night, Liam brought home dinner, takeout from the tiny Thai place I loved. He didn't say much, just handed me a bowl, kissed my cheek, and sat beside me. We ate in comfortable silence, legs touching beneath the table. Emma, he said suddenly. I looked up. He was holding something small, a key. You don't have to say yes, he added, but if you want to stop pretending this place isn't already yours, I want you here, as long as you want to be. I reached for the key, closed my fingers around it, then leaned across the table and kissed him slow, deep, grateful. I already chose you, I whispered. This just makes it official. Chapter 15. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath for most of my life until Liam made me exhale without asking for anything in return. It had been a week since the interview aired, a week since Darren's downfall became official. The media had moved on, my inbox no longer overflowed, and I finally felt the edges of my world soften. But what surprised me most wasn't the silence. It was how Liam never once stepped away from me once it started. He stayed, not just in his words, but in every quiet moment, in every look, every touch. We took the weekend off. He told his assistant to cancel everything, tossed our bags into the back of his car, and drove us out to the coast without saying a word about where we were going. Just told me to pack something soft, something comfortable, something I'd wear if I was finally allowed to rest. The house we arrived at was made of glass and stone, perched on a cliff. Surrounded by wildflowers and wind, it wasn't cold, it wasn't sharp, it was warm, clean, open, like him. I stood on the balcony and watched the ocean for what felt like hours. until Liam came up behind me, slid his arms around my waist, and whispered, "This is what I imagined when I thought of peace." I leaned back into him. "You brought me here to feel free," I said. "I brought you here to remember who you are without fear." That night, he lit the fireplace in the living room and pulled me down onto the floor with him. Just a blanket, a bottle of wine, and the quiet sound of the ocean in the distance. "I thought I'd be more scared," I whispered as I curled into his side. "Of what? Of how easy this feels. After everything." Liam turned toward me, brushing my hair back with fingers that didn't shake. "That's because it's not forced, or fake, or one-sided." His voice dropped lower. "It's real." Then he kissed me. Not like a man claiming anything, but like one offering everything. She tasted like wine and warmth and hope. I kissed her slow, deep, learning the rhythm of her breath, the way her fingers curled in my shirt, the soft little sound she made when I pulled her onto my lap. Her thighs straddled mine, her body flush against me, and for a moment we just stared at each other, breathless. "I've never felt like this before," she whispered. "Like what?" "Like, I don't have to be strong every second." I cupped her jaw. "You don't." I lifted her gently, carried her to the bedroom upstairs, and made love to her with more patience than I'd ever known I had. No rush, no noise, just her. All of her. And when she fell asleep, curled into my chest, her breath soft against my neck, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I was already hers. Long before she said yes. Chapter 16. I woke to sunlight warming my skin and the scent of ocean air drifting through the open balcony doors. And Liam. Still asleep beside me, his arms slung loosely across my waist, his chest rising and falling with the kind of ease I hadn't seen on his face until last night. He looked younger like this. Softer. Like the weight he carried had shifted. I traced the edge of his jaw with the tip of my finger, slow and quiet, memorizing him in the way you do when you're terrified. It's all a dream. He stirred beneath my touch, eyes still closed. "You're staring," he murmured. I smiled. "You're beautiful when you're not scowling at the world." His eyes opened slowly, and I got lost in them like I always did. I only scowl at the world because it gave me you the hard way. I laughed softly, burying my face in his chest. "I'm serious," he whispered. "If you had shown up any earlier in my life, I wouldn't have known what to do with you. And now?" His hand cupped the back of my neck, thumb gently brushing under my chin. "Now," he said, "I'd burn everything down just to keep you safe." We stayed in bed for hours, not because we were lazy, but because neither of us wanted to return to a world that demanded we pretend to be anything other than what we were right then. Two people who had clawed our way back to life and somehow found each other in the wreckage. He cooked breakfast shirtless, hair messy, humming under his breath as I sat on the kitchen island in one of his t-shirts, watching him like a woman too and loved to hide it. "You're staring again," he teased. I sipped my coffee. "It's your fault for walking around looking like temptation." He grinned. "You know what I realized this morning?" he asked, sliding a plate toward me. "What?" He paused, serious now. "That I've never wanted forever with someone until you." I stopped breathing. His voice stayed steady. "You don't have to say it back. Not yet. I know you've been through hell. But I need you to know that I'm not just here for the healing. I'm here for everything that comes after, too." I blinked fast, swallowing the lump in my throat. "I'm scared," I whispered. He stepped closer, took my hand, brought it to his chest. "I'll hold the fear with you. Just don't walk away from me, Emma." I wrapped my arms around his neck and pressed my forehead to his. "I'm not going anywhere." Chapter 17. 6 months later. Spring in the city smelled like second chances. Everything felt new, brighter, lighter, like the weight of the past had finally stopped pressing down on my chest. My name was on the door of my own office now. My consulting firm was growing faster than I ever expected. The emails didn't scare me anymore. The spotlight no longer made me shrink. And Liam? Liam was still choosing me, every damn day. We had dinner on the rooftop of the building we now shared, his penthouse, our home. The table was lit with fairy lights. Jazz hummed low from somewhere inside. The sky overhead was soft and starless, and Liam hadn't stopped staring at me since I stepped outside in his favorite dress. "You keep looking at me like you're about to propose," I joked. He smiled, and then he pulled out a box. My heart stopped. Liam, he didn't get down on one knee. He stayed seated, holding it between us with steady hands. "I don't need a ceremony or a ring to know you're mine," he said. but I'd like to give you both anyway. I opened the box slowly. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, just like everything he ever gave me. But it wasn't the diamond that caught my breath. It was the engraving inside. I choose you. Always. I don't have vows, he whispered. Just a truth. I've never trusted anyone the way I trust you. And I want to spend the rest of my life making sure you never doubt how much I love you. Tears blurred my vision. I reached across the table, cupped his face, and kissed him with every piece of me I used to hide. Yes, I whispered against his lips. She wore the ring like it belonged to her all along. And when we went inside that night, her hand in mine, her laughter in my ears, I realized something I'd never admitted out loud. Emma didn't just survive with me, she saved me. And loving her, that was the easiest, most permanent thing I'd ever done. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Liam's voice in the kitchen, low and soft. He was on the phone with someone. His mother, I guessed. Yes, he said, glancing back at me with a grin. She said yes. I smiled into the pillow. And just like that, I knew. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of the only one I ever really wanted. The one where I'm loved the way I never thought I could be. Fiercely. Chapter 18. 3 years later. The house was filled with sunlight and the sound of bare feet on hardwood floors. Mommy! I turned just in time to catch a curly-haired blur launching into my arms. Sophie, our daughter. 2 years old and already fierce like me, stubborn like Liam, and somehow a perfect blend of everything we didn't know we had to give. I scooped her up, laughing. You're getting too fast. She giggled and pointed toward the kitchen. Daddy made pancakes. He did? I raised a brow. Should we trust him? She nodded solemnly. He used the good blueberries. Liam's voice echoed from the kitchen. She's lying. I bribed her. I stepped into the kitchen and froze for just a second, not because anything was wrong, but because everything was right. Liam stood at the stove, shirt wrinkled, hair tousled, Sophie's tiny apron tied around his waist. He looked up, saw me, and smiled in that way he only ever smiled at me, like he still couldn't believe I stayed. You're staring, he said, flipping a pancake. You're ridiculous, I teased. He grinned. You love it. I walked over, wrapped one arm around his waist and the other around our daughter. I love you. He leaned down and kissed me, quick, soft, but full of everything we'd built. Later that evening, after Sophie was asleep and the house had gone quiet, I curled into Liam on the couch and laid my head on his chest. I talked to the shelter today, I said quietly. They're ready. For your mentorship program? I nodded. They have 10 women signed up for the first round, all of them coming out of situations like mine. They're scared, but they're ready. He kissed my temple. Just like you were. I paused. No, they're stronger. They're doing it earlier. That's what matters. His arm tightened around me. You're changing lives. You saved mine. You saved your own, he whispered. I just happened to love you through it. Sometimes I still wondered how we got here, from a broken booth in a smoky lounge to a little girl with wild hair and blueberry-stained fingers, but most days I didn't question it anymore, because I was exactly where I belonged, loved, safe, whole. Finally. Chapter 19. No one tells you how quiet love can be. Not the kind that explodes in passion or shouts in public declarations, but the kind that lingers at 3 a.m. in a dim hospital room when your wife is asleep and your daughter is breathing on your chest for the first time. I've led boardrooms, closed billion-dollar deals, crushed rivals with a single sentence. But nothing prepared me for the moment I held Sophie in my arms. She was small, fragile, furious about being pulled from the only world she knew, but when her tiny fingers curled around mine, something in me broke open. And there it was, the thing I didn't know I was still searching for, peace. Emma was still sleeping, exhausted, glowing, beautiful even in her hospital gown, her hair a mess, lips parted in rest. She gave me this life. She trusted me with her scars and gave me her soul in return. And now she'd given me a daughter. Our daughter. I looked down at Sophie, blinking slowly in the dim light, her little fist pressed to her cheek, her breath warm on my skin. I never believed in second chances until her mother gave me one. Now I believe in everything. The nurse came in to check vitals. I didn't let go of Sophie. I just adjusted her gently, held her with more care than I've held anything in my life. She's beautiful, the nurse whispered. She's her mother's daughter, I whispered back. She smiled and left us alone. I sat there for hours, just me and Sophie, listening to the soft sounds of Emma breathing, tracing the shape of our daughter's hands, wondering what she'd become, what she'd love, what she'd fight for, and how I would give everything I had to protect it, to protect her, to protect them. When Emma finally stirred, her eyes fluttered open and landed on me, on us. Her voice was raspy, soft. "Is she okay?" "She's perfect," I said. "You both are." She smiled through her exhaustion. "You've been crying. I didn't deny it." I didn't know love could feel like this. Emma reached for me, and I leaned forward just enough for her hand to touch Sophie's back. "She already knows who you are," she whispered. "She already loves you." I kissed Emma's forehead, then Sophie's. And in that moment, I knew. This wasn't the end of my legacy. It was the beginning. Chapter 20. 5 years later. Our daughter danced through the garden barefoot. Sunlight tangled in her curls, her laughter filling the air like music. Sophie was 6 now, fierce, funny, far too clever for her own good. And Liam? Liam was still watching her like she held the whole sky in her hands. I sat on the porch steps with a book in my lap and a smile on my face, content in the kind of stillness I once thought I'd never deserve. We lived in a quieter part of the city now, just outside the noise, surrounded by trees and space and the sound of our lives unfolding slowly, peacefully, lovingly. I remembered the first time I saw Emma, how quiet she was, how strong, how broken, and how even in her brokenness, she looked like home. Now, 5 years later, she was still that and more. My wife, my partner, my every soft place to land. She was kneeling beside Sophie now, helping her pick the last of the flowers for the vase on the table. Their laughter was low and shared, like a secret I didn't need to understand to be grateful for. I never thought I'd be the man who found peace in the ordinary. But here I was, wearing a t-shirt smeared with little painted handprints, sipping coffee that had gone cold, with more love in my chest than I ever knew I could carry. Later that evening, I pulled Emma into me on the back porch after Wed put Sophie to bed. Fireflies danced beyond the railing, and the stars blinked like they were smiling just for us. "You still love me like this?" she whispered. I pulled her closer. "Especially like this." She smiled into my chest. "You saved my life, Liam." "No," I whispered back. "You let me be part of the life you saved yourself." And I'd never stop being grateful for that. Sometimes I still woke up with the echo of my old fears. But when I reached out and found Liam's hand, warm, grounded, mine, I knew one truth above all else. Love like this doesn't erase the past. It just gives you somewhere soft to land when it tries to follow you home. And this was my home. Not just Liam, not just Sophie, but us. Alive, healing, happy, and finally free. The end. Written by Maria. Thank you all for taking the time to dive into this story with me. Your love and support mean everything, and I truly appreciate each and every one of you. This journey wouldn't be the same without you, and I'm so grateful to share these stories with such amazing readers. Stay tuned for more passion, more love, and more unforgettable moments. Until next time, see you in the next one. With love, always, Maria.